What's going on YouTube? It is Texans Takeover back in another video. In today's video, I'm redoing what I did. It was a couple days ago, I believe, but we're doing another AFC South 3-round mock draft. So, controlling the Titans, the Texans, and then the Jaguars and Colts who don't have first-round picks. So it would have been a 2-round mock draft, but since the Jags and Colts both don't have their first-round picks, the Colts losing theirs for the Sauce Gardner trade earlier this year, you can see the Jets own that, which is all the way up to 18 after it was probably sitting around 30 earlier in the year. And then the Jaguars traded for Travis Hunter in last draft to move up with the Browns. So Browns have Jaguars first-round pick here at 27, one right after the Houston Texans, but we're controlling all four teams in this draft. We can trade down, we can trade up, do what we want to with every team in this draft. So, yeah, I think we just jump straight into it and see what happens here with the Titans. Going to start off our draft here at number 4. Um, yeah, you don't know what you want here in Tennessee. You need a lot of stuff. You could use a wide receiver to bolster your receiver core. You could use anything on the offensive line if you want to. You can get an edge rusher. You could upgrade your linebackers. You can upgrade your DB room. In my opinion, I think your best bet is going a guy that can play in the middle of the field, but he can also rush off the edge if you'd like him to. I know you don't see linebacker go too high in the draft. You think of a Devin White who went high in the draft. His career didn't pan out the way you wanted him to, but at the same time, if he's utilized the way that you are supposed to utilize an athlete like a Devin White, you saw how pivotal he was for the Buccaneers in that 2022 Super Bowl. I want to say 2021 against the Chiefs. That run, he was just tremendous. I think the Titans, if you can get a guy like an Arvel Roos who could potentially play off the edge if you want him to, but he can also play um, at that core linebacker position, which you also need help at. You need help across your entire roster. You need to just, you know, look at that roster, see what you need to change, and basically go all in to make those changes and completely rebuild. Get rid of the Calvin Ridleys, the old guys you have on your rosters. You could even potentially move on from Jeffrey Simmons if he wants to go to a contender, or you just want the draft capital that you can get from giving up Jeffrey Simmons. So I think that makes this Arvel Reese pick a lot more valuable for the Titans than people may presume from a traditional linebacker draft pick. But this is a guy that can play edge or linebacker for you, so that's going to be my pick here at number 4. Not going to make any moves for the Colts or Jags because they just don't have the draft capital to really be moving around the board. Um, you can see guys that you want for Houston. Olavega Ione is gone. Cade McDonald's gone. Francis Malinoa, who's played excellent. I think he'll go. I think his draft stock's going to rise with how good he looks in the college football playoff. I think he might go top 10, probably best offensive lineman in this class in terms of tape. Um, just dominated Cassius Howell, dominated anyone on Ohio State's defensive line. So yeah, I think we see Francis Malinoa go somewhere. Maybe to like the Rams or potentially the Cardinals if the Cardinals would like to move down, but they go Jordan Tyson, which I agree with in this draft. But yeah, here with the Texans at 26, you don't have much you're desiring for here. I think if you're at 26, you either move up to get one of the offensive linemen in this class, like a Olavega Ione, or you kind of just move down. I like the idea of a Christian Miller to help your interior defensive line out just because of how good he is at stopping the run. Plays later tonight, actually. It is January 1st, so Happy New Year's to everyone. Hope this new year goes the way you want it to, but um, yeah, for this, I think you look at moving down. You look to see what pick is going to be valuable for you. Do you want a CJ Allen, so do you just want to move down a little bit with like the Bears or the Patriots? Do you want Amari Washington, who's a very good interior defensive lineman as well, good at getting to the quarterback, good at stopping the run? So here for the Texans, I'm going to move down. It says the Bears want the pick. If you could pick up 29 and 61 for 26, it's not going to be accepted. Probably 93. If we move to like the Denver Broncos pick, I don't think they'd be willing to move up, to be honest. Um, yeah, they're just not interested at all because I think Kenyon Sadiq would be their perfect fit. Um, they're not interested either. So it looks like the Bears are the team that's interested, or the Dolphins here at 43. You'd probably pick up something like this. I think that would 100% be accepted. Um, I think that's yeah, that's too low of value for the Texans there, I think. So maybe look to the Bears. You go 29.93, um, and maybe like 168 or something. But that doesn't matter. We're only looking at these two picks because those are obviously in the second and third rounds. So that's going to be the trade here. I'm going to offer it. It should go through. So Texans move back 3 spots, but also get a pick in the third round. So they're going to have another draft pick in this. And the Bears are going to be up at 26, and they go with Caden Proctor there. So works out for the Texans. They're able to move down. And then you still have the opportunity to get a CJ Allen if you want to, or a Caleb Lomu. You don't know what the future of Trent Brown is, so maybe you want to invest in the offensive line. I completely agree with that idea, and that's going to be my pick there at 29. Definitely not what I expected to do, but it's just what I ended up doing. There at 29 for the Texans. I think that everyone knows Texans' big concern is the offensive line. I think any way you can help that unit, you're gonna attempt to. You have Ariante Airsery, who's been playing very well. I think Caleb Lomu could slot in at right tackle. For those who don't know, Trent Brown is on a 1-year deal, so if you don't re-sign him, then you don't have a right tackle. If you're not planning on moving Titus Howard back to right tackle, and keeping him at guard, so it would be an offensive line of Ursery, Howard, Jake Andrews, which will get replaced probably in this draft too, and then Ed Ingram, who's played great, and Caleb Lomu. So brand new offensive line for the Texans, and we move back to the Tennessee Titans here at 36. And for me, I think you need to invest in the offensive line. You're probably a little upset that Caleb Lomu goes at 29. Maybe he falls a little bit, but I would expect the Patriots to pick him if he's not there. But here at 36 with the Titans, I really like Jennings Dunker's game. The reason I didn't pick him for the Texans is I don't think the Texans need a guard, and I think Jennings Dunker is more of a guard in the NFL than a traditional left tackle or right tackle. But Titans need help across the entire offensive line. I think Jennings Dunker is a great pick to help him out there. Um, and then moving on to the Texans again at 39, it's pretty unfortunate the fact that Christian Miller goes at 37. I think that's exactly what you're looking at on the interior defensive line there. So, this could be another trade down spot for the Texans. They're just picking up draft pick after draft pick. Um, but at the same time, there's a guy down there that I think I've raved about a lot, and that is Mr. AJ Halsey. I really like his game. You could probably move down a little bit and secure the draft pick there. And is there a team that I'm not talking about this pick. I'm gonna pick AJ Halsey with this pick, but for the Texans, I want them to move up a little bit. If I use 58 and 107, if there's a team with mm, like the Falcons here at 44, it's a 50-50 shot, and it's accepted. Excuse me, jeez. Um, so Texans move up. There's a guy I saw down the board as well that I really like for Houston as a fit, but I think AJ Halsey's very physical. I think he's a great safety, and I think he would fit with the Texans scheme perfectly. Um, so that's why I'm going to make that pick there at number 39. Ty Simpson goes to the Dolphins at 43. That's pretty interesting, actually. This pick at 44 is going to be pretty self-explanatory. Um, One of my favorite offensive linemen in this class. I think my second favorite guard, and that's Emmanuel Pregnon. I think he could go in the first round after Ione goes. I think it'll be Ione, and then he'll be the next interior offensive lineman to go. If Jennings Dunker is considered as a tackle, but he'll definitely be considered as a guard in the draft process. So there's that. Moving on though to the Colts, I think you're pretty upset that the Texans take AJ Halsey. I think he's probably the second best safety after obviously Caleb Downs goes. But with the Colts, you have a lot of needs. You probably want Anthony Hill Jr. there. I probably could have traded up for you, but you look at the Colts, you look at the draft capital, you have a second, third, and then pretty self or just like one pick per round basically, besides the later rounds where you get compensatory picks. If you look at the Jags, if I can find them somewhere, there they are. You have, Detroit's, you have some late round picks, but you don't really have that much ammunition to move up. So you're at 59. If there's a need you see there, you could 100% move up. And you could do that with the Jaguars if you needed Dylan Tinneman, who played great today against Texas Tech. I think everyone played great for that Oregon defense today. But for the Colts here at 50 specifically, sorry, got a little off track there. I think you look linebacker. I think there's guys that you can look at that you definitely need. I think Deontay Lawson's a very good linebacker. Has decent um, height, but you probably want him to put a little bit more pounds on. Torian York, a little short, but reads the field very well. Just a very good traditional linebacker. Um, Jake Golday, I really like as well. I think one of my favorite in terms of frame and just the ability to make tackles in the run game. So that could be a consideration for the Colts down here at 82. Maybe you package this 50 and 82 to move down with a chart. No, you need a team that's picking up here. So like the Steelers, who are at 52, and then 78, and then potentially pick up their compensatory at 98. So you're gonna try this. Wherever the Steelers, I'll force this one just because I think it's pretty fair. You probably have to give up 157, and then I'll force this trade for the Colts here. So you're moving down 2 spots, but then you're moving up 4 spots in the third round, and also moving back into the third round. So you have 3 picks in this third round now. After moving down a couple of spots, Steelers are able to secure the guy they want, which would be Chris Johnson. I do think they need help at corner, so that works for them. And then here at 52 for the Colts, I think you go Dylan Tinneman to help that safety room because Nick Cross is a free agent after the season. So I think it definitely needs some help, at least in terms of depth, even if you want to bring back Nick Cross. Here at 59 with the Jaguars, I think your biggest need is center. And you could probably move down a little bit if you want to, if there's a team in within this range that has an early third, but doesn't seem like they do. So we're not going to do this for you. You do have compensatory picks and another pick in the third round. You have 3 in the third, or yeah, 3 in the third, and then 1 right now. I'm gonna address the need at center because I think it's a clear cut center 1, center 2 class, and then it pretty much drops off. I think my next favorite would probably be Pat Coogan, who I've been talking about a lot. Indiana's offensive line just absolutely dominated Alabama's defensive line today. They won 38-3. But I've said this a lot. I like Jake Slaughter's game more than Connor Lewis probably after watching them both side by side. So I'm gonna go with Jake Slaughter for the Jaguars. You can disagree with me all you want. If you want to go Connor Lew, you can go Connor Lew there. If you want to go completely different direction, please let me know. But that's what I feel is best fit for the Jaguars right now. I think they need a lot of help in that interior offensive line, and I think at that point there's probably better suited to draft a center there than a guard because your next best guard is Chase Basantis, and you know I think he goes later in the draft than 95 potentially. Here at 66 with the Texans, this is the Giants pick that they picked up alongside their second round pick after trading for, or they moved up for Jackson Dart last year. And you're really looking at, you addressed your offensive line, you draft your safety room. So you're looking linebacker potentially, and then you're looking running back. So there's not really great guys here, not guys that I particularly like. I like L.J. Martin's game a lot, but he's a little further down the board. So I think this is another spot where you consider moving down, picking up 2 picks. Who has compensatories here? You could go to the Vikings, who don't pick till 81. You could probably see L.J. Martin go there. There's not many compensatory picks. You could pick up 82 and 84 potentially. Um, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do here with the Texans. The Rams want it. They pick at 88. I want the Texans to move to around like 80. Um, so yeah, I think the Vikings would be fine. I think this would be a very fair trade. 53% chance to be accepted. We'll take it. Wasn't accepted at first. Wasn't accepted at second. Wasn't accepted at third. Accepted at fourth. I don't know why it's a hassle. If it's just gonna be accepted anyway, but it's going to be the Titans pick next. Torian York does go right before your pick, but you already kind of addressed linebacker to an extent in this draft. Um, and for the Titans, I talked about wanting, um, you know, to some extent quantity over quality at this point, but you're getting quality in the third round. It's just you're moving back a little bit to do so, and you see the Steelers there with the 2 third-round picks. I was considering this with the Texans, but I'm going to do it with the um, the Tennessee Titans could probably go for a 104 and pick up like a 157. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Titans move back, but pick up two picks in this third round. So really moving around the draft board with all these teams. And we are now up at 78 with the Colts, and that's a really bad beat with Jake Golday going right there before your pick. I think that probably would have been the obvious pick there for the Colts if he was available, but he's not. Little unfortunate. So kind of makes me alter a little bit because that's exactly the direction I was going to go. I told you I was moving back for that exact pick, and then he decides to go at 77 to the Buccaneers, which I think is a great fit. But you could look at the defensive lineman class. You could also look at the edge class. I think they could use a better edge rusher. You don't know what the future of DeForest Buckner holds. I know he's a traditional interior defensive lineman, but he influences the exterior play, and I think Derek Moore is someone that the Colts could really use on the edge. Been a great defensive lineman for Michigan in terms of getting to the quarterback. You can see 11 sacks this year, excuse me. Um, Opposite of Jayshawn Barham, just had games where he truly wrecked opponents. I think you watch that Washington game and you see that ceiling that he could have. Very athletic. He lines up over the or outside the tackle a lot, so traditional edge rusher, but he's going to be able to play all three downs for you, and I think that's very valuable in this draft class that doesn't have a lot of guys that um, can play all three downs. So that's going to be my pick here for the Colts at 78. And then we're moving on to the Jaguars. You can see this little cluster of picks that the AFC South are all picking in. So Colts go Derek Moore to improve their defensive line unit. I think they need help on the entire defensive line, not just interior. So that's why Derek Moore's the pick there. Here at 79 with the Jaguars, you go Jake Slaughter to bolster that offensive line unit. I think you need help on the defensive line as well as the secondary a little bit. And one of my draft crushes, excuse me, is Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. I picked him in the second round, I think, one time for the Texans over AJ Halsey. I just love the guy. I love the way he plays. So, I think if he's down here in the third round, it's a steal for whoever gets him. I think he'll be one of the better players in this draft class altogether. And I think it's a perfect fit there in Jacksonville, who desperately need a safety. So that's that for them. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is the pick there. And I think that's a very, very good fit for Jacksonville. Probably one of the best picks in this draft for anyone. Um, and that sends me down to 81 with the Texans, who moved down from 66 to 81 and 97. So they pick up 81. This is to go for running back. I like LJ Martin's game. I said that earlier. That's going to be my clear cut pick here for the Texans. I moved down for this exact pick, so that's exactly what I'm going to go for here at number 81. And that moves me over to Tennessee at 82. You invest in defense offense once. I think your defense needs more help than your offense, but at the same time, you need to give Cam Ward weapons. You have Chimere Dike, you have Elagayo Manor. You don't know what the future of Calvin Ridley is going to entail, so you're looking at guys that can come in and do a job at that wide receiver position. You're looking at guys that can run the ball better than Tony Pollard did this year or Tajay Spears, but I think that they're fine as complementary backs, although I do like Seth McGowan as a prospect. If you look at his last year tape, he found the end zone a lot more this year than last year, but I think he showed more flashes as a runner last year than this. But with that being said, I think one of the best wide receivers in this draft class is Skylar Bell in terms of production. You see 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns. Just had a great year for UConn. Yes, not against the best competition. You can see when you face a good defense in Army, he didn't great, but I don't think he was that bad in that game. Against Duke, another good team, won the ACC. He performed very well there. And then Syracuse as well. He also had a very good game, and Boston College. So if there's games you can look at for UConn to watch him play, and he looked very good in all those against better opponents than UConn's typically playing against. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I think you get yourself another guy that can probably be a wide receiver too. If you look at his frame, it's a traditional wide receiver, 6 foot 185, can play in the slot. That's typically where he produces from. So I'm gonna go Skylar Bell there with that Titans pick. Here at 84, I just realized the Steelers have the Colts third round pick for some reason. Never knew that, but yeah, here at 84, you go defense, offense, offense. I think you probably turn back to defense potentially, but at the same time, you see Emmett Johnson there, and I love Emmett Johnson's game. Um, 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns, just kind of carried that Nebraska offense with Dylan Raiola right next to him. And I think he's a very, very good player. I think you could use a running back to really help them out. But at the same time, I think you could use a true tackle because you did go with Jennings Dunker to fill in at that guard position. And if you want a true tackle, I know he doesn't grade well. I think they undergrade offensive linemen pretty heavily, but you see this frame, he's a true tackle. He's probably one of the true tackles left in this class because Xavier Chaplin would have been another one, but he's returning to college. Caden Green's a guard. Brian Parker, I believe, is most likely going to be a guard as well. You can look at the frames of these guys, and then their arm lengths are going to show you that Isaiah World's probably another tackle in there. Carter Smith is going to be a guard, but he's a tremendous guard at that. So Nicky Pronga is going to be the pick here for Tennessee to help that offensive line unit even more. Moving on back to the Jaguars, I think this is pretty self-explanatory. You invest in safety, which is a need. You invest in center, which is a need. So you're looking guard. You're looking defensive line. So you kind of just look for BPA in either of these positions. I like Darrell Jackson Jr.'s game. He has a good frame, good size to him. Plays the game really well, really smart player. You can see he didn't grade great against better offenses, but then even them playing Miami, who has a decent offense, and Clemson, who has a subpar year but also a decent offense, he performed very well in as well. Um, doesn't really get to the quarterback all too much, but he's very good at stopping the run. If you do watch Florida State, and I think the Jags stopped the run at a very high rate. I think they're looking on the interior defensive line for a guy like Skylar Gill Howard who can get to the quarterback, um, and really influence play. Did get hurt, hasn't played since they lost to Arizona State. Their one loss in the regular season. They did lose today to Oregon, but showed a lot of good flashes earlier on in the season. Um, is a little bit undersized at 6'1", 290. I think he can bulk up to around 320, 315, and I think he'll be fine. So with that being said, I don't think the Jaguars should invest here. I think pick 100 is probably going to be their defensive lineman pick. So I'm going to go offensive line. I'm going to go guard, and I think Caden Green's probably going to be a very good guard in the league, as well as Brian Parker Jr. I think Brian Parker Jr. had a lot of good games, but at the same time, he profiles as a guard, not a tackle. So I'm between these two guys. Chase Basantis isn't bad, but just not great. I don't really see anything on tape from him that I particularly like too well. I think my favorite here is probably Caden Green, so that's going to be my pick there for the Jaguars at 91. Here with the Texans at 93, they've had a multitude of draft picks. They have a lot in the top 100, especially if you move around the board with them. You pretty much have 5 to 6 if you want. And they've gone 3 offense, 1 defense, and I think that's the priority. You might want to go center here, but there's not many great true centers. Pat Coogan down the board is the guy that I want Houston to draft if they don't go Lou or Slaughter. Um, so you kind of look at defense and what you need defensively, and you need a guy that can stop the run, um, as well as a linebacker that could have the athleticism to potentially replace Henry To'oTo'o if you want to. I love Bryce Mosherter. Um, I think he graded a lot better than a 65 in that Washington game. I think he had like 18 tackles as well as scored offensively, but whatever. He's a baseball player too. Um, but I'm going to go defensive line. I talked about him earlier, potentially to the Jaguars. I'm going to go with him here just because I think the Texans do need a run stopper on that interior rather than a guy that can get to the quarterback. The Jaguars and Texans are basically flipped in this department. I would draft Skylar Gill Howard for the Jaguars. I wouldn't draft Skylar Gill Howard for the Texans, but I'd draft Darrell Jackson Jr. for the Texans while I wouldn't for the Jaguars, and that's going to be my pick here at 93. Here at 97 with the Texans, you can go a lot of different areas, and I think this is a pretty underrated one, but Kamari Lassiter goes down against the Chargers. You're kind of scrambling because you have Tremont Smith out there at corner. So D'Angelo Pons has been great all year. Jalen Kilgore is also another very good athlete from South Carolina. So potential there. I think he might return to college though with the amount of guys from South Carolina that are returning. Maybe they're all returning to try to make a run next year. Other than that, I love D'Angelo Pons' game. Been great for Indiana this year. Just the size is a concern. Um, Will Lee has decent size, 6'1", 190. Malik Muhammad as well. I think he's around 5'10". Oh, he's 6 foot. I was wrong there. I really like D'Angelo Pond's game. I like Tacario Davis's game. If you want a big corner, that's exactly what you're getting in Tacario Davis, as well as Davison Igbinosun, 6'2", 195 there. So you could look corner if you want with the Texans. I think that's definitely an underrated aspect. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep um, the in-state guy in-state. I'm going to go with Will Lee. I think he plays how the Texans would like a guy to play, very physical. That Texas A&M defense is just a very physical unit at that. And we now move on to the Colts here at number 98. Um, and oh, I did make that trade earlier. They moved up to 52, and that's why the Steelers had um, 82, and then I ended up doing that with the Titans, so that's pretty funny. But here at 98, the Colts take the Steelers' compensatory third-round pick. You go pretty much defense. I think you can invest in the offense if you want to. You don't know if you have a quarterback next year, so that's a little bit of a question, but I just don't trust any of these guys here. Um, I was pretty high on Brevin Morton, but he just did not play well at all today. Showed a lot of um, accuracy concerns. I think Luke Altmaier's not bad. I think he will return to college, but he produced well. He's an accurate quarterback there. I think that's a guy you can get down the board. We'll see how Riley Leonard plays for them this week. I think Drew Aller has prototypical size for a quarterback that you would like. I don't think he's horrible at all. I think he'd be very decent in the NFL. You might get a steal there with Drew Aller. I think he does return to college on a medical red shirt. Carson Beck also been um, somewhat solid in the second half of the season for Miami, but I just don't think there's a quarterback there that you really rave over. Mateer's not going to translate to the NFL at all. Start out the season super, super hot, and then I think that thumb really messed with him, but it's not going to be a pick for anyone there. I don't think, in my opinion. I'm going to go with the linebacking department most likely. And, I know people may call me crazy on this, but I think Denai Dennis Sutton could play linebacker in the NFL with how athletic he is. I see that frame, but I think this is basically a Walmart Micah Parsons. Wherever you want to line him up on that front seven, he's going to be able to line up for you. So I think the Colts will use that flexibility, and that's why I'm going with him there at number 98. Last but not least, the Jaguars here at number 100. You go guard and center to bolster that interior offensive line. You need help on your defensive line. I talked about this pick earlier. Skylar Howard's going to be my pick to wrap this up. A guy that can get to the quarterback from the interior, and that's his main focus rather than just stopping the run. That's how the first round turned out. PFF does not have it to where you can see the teams that you controlled for some reason. It's only up to 3 teams that you can do that. So um, yeah, go back, see what picks your favorite team made. Let me know down in the comment section if you agree or disagree with them and why. And if you did enjoy this video, please be sure to like, subscribe. And as always, it's Repulse, and I'm out. Or, no, it's not. It's Texans Takeover, and I'm out. Thanks y'all so much for watching, and peace.